Okay.
All right, we are recording 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Gonzo Experience. I am David Gonzo Mamano, your host. So happy to be here today. I am with a guy. His name is Bruce Ha. Bruce, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Your story is just freaking amazing. Your journey to America from Vietnam. And I want to just have people appreciate that the American dream is still very alive and well, despite all the negative news media out there, because you're proving it every day. And we're going to learn about that. It's such an inspiring story. And then also not only the story, but what you're doing today to make your dreams come true. You're an incredible entrepreneur with some really innovative products, and really excited to share this with the Gonzo family. First and foremost, I stopped reading full bios recently because I just wanted to really, get the guests to kind of give us their live version of their bio. But I'm going to read yours because I think it's really important, for the listeners to hear the outline of your story. Because I think if they hear this, they're going to want to listen, to the end of this interview. They're probably going to want to contact you, right? Because it's so inspiring. So I'm going to read your bio. So Bruce Ha, again, welcome to the show. Bruce started his journey to America at the age of 9 with his 5 brothers and his 1 sister, along, of course, with his parents. The family looked back at their home for the last time in 1975 during the North Vietnamese takeover of Saigon. After 9 months of homelessness, Bruce and his family settled in Southern California to start a new life. In the 40 years since, Bruce's siblings have achieved successful and rewarding careers. Bruce himself became an entrepreneur inventor as the CEO and founder of 6 startup companies in the information storage industry. Through Bruce's experiences with companies such as Rockwell Science Center, Hughes Aircraft, Raytheon, Pioneer, Technicolor, and Kodak, he developed a systematic and disciplined approach to new market creation. He did this by driving value innovations through a blue ocean strategy, making competition irrelevant. In the corporate world, Bruce successfully created breakthroughs to solve optical storage problems. Through his own companies, Bruce redefined and solved problems for a myriad of industries, as well as creation of new opportunities in uncharted markets. Bruce's archival solution is the most permanent and longest lasting archival medium known to man. Bruce invented technologies that reduced Kodak's production of picture CD from 20 minutes to 5 seconds. And to solve a vexing counterfeiting problem for Microsoft, Bruce invented an uncopyable 300,000 dots per inch holographic security and authentication technology licensed for use in every Windows, Office, and Xbox disk made in 2007. Bruce's inventions also created the first 30 million page lunar library placed on the moon in 2019. A second set was delivered to be placed in Q4 2021. Bruce also works with the Ark mission as its chief scientist to explore ways to archive humanity for the next 10,000 years or longer by placing space as well as Earth-based libraries, secure locations around the galaxy. More personally, Bruce started SarahHa.com to make archival and memory jewelry as keepsakes. Most recently, Bruce teamed up with Gold Money and Roy Sebag to create permanent information storage solutions in gold. Bruce is an alumni of USC with 2 degrees in engineering and 1 in business. As an inventor, Bruce has numerous patents pending and also 12 that have been granted. Patents include articles and methods for high-speed polar raster. Is that raster? Raster writing technology used to build nano diffractive elements into high-level security, holographic features, as well as nanotests and photos into metals for ultra long-term storage. You're making me say sounds that I've never said with my mouth, Bruce. I love it. Thank you. But last but not least, in addition to his business focus, Bruce and his wife, Sarah, spend much of their free time with their 3 young daughters. They practice Taekwondo to build physical and mental discipline. Bruce also enjoys martial arts and he was an instructor at one time. After coming to America, through hard work and determination, he taught himself English and he excelled in school, receiving top honors. Bruce can speak Vietnamese, French, and Japanese as well. Because of his adversities, Bruce understands life's challenges and is therefore dedicated to his community by helping alleviate poverty, promoting animal welfare, and encouraging the advancement of youths in the field of math, history, and science. Bruce's passion is to help endow the archive of humanity's collective works to preserve human knowledge for generations to come. So there is a lot to unpack there, Bruce, but great bio. Like I said, I think you just had me say words that I never said before. So stretching me. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But Bruce, so I definitely want to talk about all your great accomplishments in entrepreneurship. But first, I want to start with that journey of you being 9 years old, looking in, 1975 on the boat, looking at your home for the last time. Tell me about that. What was going through your mind? What are your memories from that?
Yeah, so I have a lot to say about that, and I don't know if we have a lot of time, but what I'm going to do is just capture that moment. We were going to go to, my dad had 4 tickets because he worked for the government, and he had 4 tickets to go with an American, uh, to go out and fly out of a fixed wing out of the Saigon to go to America. The problem was we had 9 people in our family. We had 4 tickets. So we had to really decide what to do. We decided to break up the family into 2 groups. My dad would take my older brother, me and my sister to go to America and somehow come back and get my mom. The one thing we were very worried about was because my mom was a teacher, they were systematically going through and eliminating anyone who were doing education, teachers, people that worked in the government, killing them or putting them into concentration camps for a very long time. So we were very worried, but we had no choice. So my dad took us to the airport, but that night they had bombed the airport. So we came back and we came home. That night was the night before April 30th. We slept under the beds because there were bombings. We can hear distant bombings around our home. We slept under the bed. I was sweating because it was a really hot, humid night. It was summer. My parents were sweating, but I think they were sweating from fear because they knew what they had to do with just 10, with 9 people. My older brother was only 10 years old, my youngest being 1. So they had a handful. In the morning, when the morning came and the bombs subsided, my dad called his friend to say, hey, look, let's get out of here. He had a boat and he said, meet him and his family at the Saigon River. So we didn't have a lot of time. My mom just grabbed whatever she could. She ripped pages of photos from her photo albums and just stuffed them into a bag. And along with that, some baby formulas for my baby brother, and we took off. She instinctively knew that, the most important things to her were her children and the memories of her children. So then we spent the next 9 days out in the open ocean, trying to get to Thailand. And we almost died in the open ocean because there was a storm that was coming. And we knew we would die in that storm because it was a big typhoon. Luckily, 3 Thai boats came out after 9 nights to come and rescue us before the typhoon hit and landed that night. So we were saved by a miracle. So during the next 9 months, we spent our time in refugee camps trying to find a home. It might sound strange, but it was one of the best times of my life. I was a young kid. I was exploring and just adventuring, meeting new friends at various camps. Eventually, we ended up at Camp Pendleton, where my dad found the First Baptist Church that sponsored us and rented us a house in Newbury Park, where we grew up. So that was my journey coming to America. I mean, there's a lot more to that, but that was the more Reader's Digest version of how it came. We basically, when we came off that boat in Thailand, we had only the shirts off our back. That was the only possession. And we came to America, we had nothing. We had nothing, literally nothing in our possession.
Yeah, it's no, thanks for that. And I know we could probably do a whole separate 2-hour interview on that piece alone. But I'm thinking when you're 9 years old, I'm thinking I was in maybe 4th grade, right? Is that around then?
I was
3rd or 4th grade.
Right.
And, listen, when I was that age, so you're, escaping possible death from your country, right? And going to a refugee camp in open ocean, almost dying, and coming to America and being homeless and not knowing the language. And I'm 9, I'm watching Mork and Mindy in my beautiful suburban home in Pittsford, New York, 3 meals a day, great school, playing outside my BMX bike, you know, and it's just night and day, right? And I just and not that I'm feeling guilty about that. I feel blessed. I mean, that was my journey as a kid, and I'm grateful that I had we'll say kind of a Mayberry upbringing, right? Richie Cunningham Mayberry upbringing, right? And such a different experience for you. But what I love about it is that you know I'm following my dreams, but so are you, right? You're able to, take that experience, and you just said one of the best experiences of your life was, the refugee camp. You made it a positive, right?
Well,
And
so I remember when at the refugee camp they had these gates and people came over. They would throw candies at us, and so as kids we just pick up the candies and say, "Oh, we got something." It was a pleasure. It was so fun trying to find the candies. It was almost like an Easter hunt, right?
yeah,
And then I remember when I came to Camp Pendleton in San Diego, we're just walking around. I found a stick of gum. I said, wow, I found a stick of gum and it's still intact. And I nibbled on that every day, just to have a little bite of gum because I was so appreciative of what I had. And and you talk about, some of the things I have now. This morning, I was thinking about just taking a shower, the water that's coming off me, being washed. When I was 9, we would kill for that water because that water was cleaner than the water we were using to boil our food with and to drink with. We couldn't take showers. We couldn't even take hot showers. So every day when I take a shower, my innovations come because I'm so relaxed. I'm so grateful for the life I have today that's when my inspirations come out. And I said, what can I do today to help the world? Because the world has given so much to me.
wow, so powerful, so powerful. You remind me, maybe a couple years ago now, I had a guy on named Ed Milet, who is now a very successful entrepreneur, worth about I think he's worth about $500 million, done very well. But he
Mhm.
talks about when he was in his 20s, he wasn't doing well, and he was living in an apartment, and they uh, couldn't pay his bills, and they shut off his water. And he's like, you don't know what life is like when you don't have water, right? Like just showering,
Right.
brushing your teeth, for cooking. And it's so to feel, and he said the same thing every day. He turns on that water for a shower. He's so grateful. So, and how many people take that for granted, right?
And hot water and soap. Oh, that's
Yeah.
luxury.
Yeah. So, here in America today, you watch the news, which I try not to, but it could be so negative, right? It could pin you down with like, oh my God, this is a terrible place, right? And because that's what sells. So the media, they need to be negative, right? And
Great.
but you're here and coming once again with not only nothing but like below nothing, right? you know and you were able to come here and roll your sleeves up and make it happen to the point where you're an incredible American success story. So how do you feel about that? Do you feel like America is still a great place
Oh,
to
absolutely.
create
And
your
I
destiny?
owe everything to what American can provide. And we have friends and relatives who had gone from Vietnam to other countries. They don't have the success. And, I know they work hard. I know our personalities is to work really hard. When we get knocked down, we get up and we get going. But in America, the opportunities given to us are tremendous. My whole family, my older brother, became an anesthesiologist. He was able to skip 2 grades because he worked really hard, and he became a very young doctor, and he's retired as a very successful anesthesiologist. And so what other country will allow a homeless kid to go and just learn with really nothing, no resources? Now, my parents had to work really, really hard in order to make that happen. we had a small house. We lived, we had 9 people living in a 1,200 square foot home with 3 bedrooms. And my sister, as the only girl, had her own room because that was our culture. So everybody else had to live in the living room. That's why
Sleep, sleep. Did you sleep wherever you dropped? Is that pretty much it?
we actually, the 3 brothers, actually the 4 brothers, we had our own room with 2 bunk beds, so we crammed into a tiny room, and the rest,
Yeah.
my parents had their room, and the rest stayed in the living room. I had also one Down syndrome brother too, and so that was very difficult for my mom to bring everybody over, and we had to have 2 incomes. My dad had to work, my mom had to work, and when I was young, I remember my mom got news that she had cancer in her leg. So she had to go to the hospital system and she was out for 6 months. My dad had to raise the kids by himself, and he had to get a job that's 2 hours away each way. So my older brother, he was 10, I was 9, and we raised the kids ourselves. So we had to really grow up very quickly. And I think that was a blessing because that experience allowed us to be very mature and understand and be very thoughtful about life. And so that skill set allowed me to do a lot of what I can do now. It grounded me in that basis and the ability for me to take care of things that are in crisis. So now, as an entrepreneur, I always look at crisis and I see opportunities. You said on one of your podcasts about your Winston Churchill that positive people look at opportunities in crisis and not crisis and opportunities. So I always remember that. And America is a fantastic country. There is no other place I can think of. And I've traveled through a lot of countries in the world, and I know many. I cannot think of one that will give you the opportunity to come and work hard and achieve what we have achieved today. And really the typical American dream. It's still alive today if you work hard for it.
Yep. No, thanks for saying that. And we still have issues. I'm not saying it's a perfect place. There still is, racism and things like that. But
when I was young, I faced racism. People didn't like FOBs, fresh off the boat. They called me all kinds of names. My parents faced racism. But, did that distract us? Did that take us down? No, we looked at the positives and we ignored the negatives, and we went on. We just moved on because it was our life to live and not theirs.
I love that. You focus on what could be instead of some of the negatives that may have been happening at that time.
Absolutely.
Super focused. Yep. Thank you for that, Bruce. And once again, you're 9 years old raising your siblings, and I'm 9 years old, riding my BMX bike in the dirt bike trails near my house and watching Mork and Mindy at night. So God bless you in many ways.
Yeah, when I came to this country, I watched Maxwell Smart and,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh,
great.
absolutely.
Learned all kinds of, I thought he was great. I liked, Maxwell Smart at 99. She was great for him. He was a stumbling guy and she helped everything. So I said, wow.
Yeah.
Strong woman. I have 3 daughters now, and I'm surrounded by women all day long, and I want them to be as strong and successful.
Behind every great man is a surprised woman. I mean, smart.
Smart woman.
Oh, that's what it is. That's right. Yeah. No, that's good that you realize that. Yeah, Maxwell Smart. I mean, I think kids today know the updated movie with Steve Carell, but back in the day, it was a series where his shoe, I believe, was a phone and a gun. And
how innovative that was. That was before the cell phone.
That's right. Right.
So
we still don't have phones that are shoes. So come on.
Maybe that's the next invention.
Bruce, there you go. Well, Bruce, thanks. And one question too. Your parents, I wanted to ask, are they still around?
Yes, they are still alive. They live in Newbury Park. So they are very much right now under COVID. They are very fearful. We've gone through a lot. We started with a power of 9. We have 9 people in our family. Just last year in November, we lost my younger brother. He would have been 51.
No, sorry.
This year, but we lost him. So a lot of my technology that I created a memorial a technology for him. So what I'm wearing, and your radio listener can't, or your podcast, I can't say radio, your podcast listeners can't see this, but what I have is a pendant. Engraved on the pendant are a bunch of photos from when we came to America, before we came to America, our journey together with the 9 people, his family today, and our families today, and also all of, a lot of his writings are in here, so I memorialize that on a pendant, and he's close to me. On the back of it is a little slot that I can put his ashes in. So he's very close to me, and I think it helped me heal through that process, and it helped my parents heal through the process because they were devastated. It took them, they sacrificed a lot to bring the family over. To lose one part of their body, their soul, was very hard. So now I try to help them keep a bit of that close to their heart. So
Yeah,
I
that's
feel good
beautiful.
that my technology is really helping my parents.
Yeah, well, that's beautiful, and a lot of incredible entrepreneurial inventions are born of a personal experience where they want to have a create a solution for, and obviously you did that in a very, very personal way. So, that's just
Yeah.
so beautiful. It's
And
beyond
it was
words.
only possible because my mom had the foresight to think, look, all the materials we had, and we had a lot. We had gold, jewelry, we had a lot. We grew up pretty well. Um, but we gave all that up. And the only things my mom took were the memories of her kids, the photo albums that I can preserve today. So I have taken her stories and her photos, and they are on the moon. On the last mission in 2019 in April, 44 years, exactly 44 years after we left Vietnam, I was able to take her story and our journey, recorded that onto a 30 million page library that went onto the moon. So,
Wow.
and I told my mom about it. She cried. She just was in tears about how her legacy will live on, and our kids and their kids will also understand where they came from, and explain. We always have a vexing question about where we came from and what is most important to us. And so I'm trying to solve that problem of helping people understand where they came from. And I'm going to tell the world what is important to me. And I'm going to help other people explain what is important to them by preserving the most important things on materials that would last forever.
That's a great segue. So, the reason I, quickly wanted to ask about your parents being alive, and that's incredible that they are to still be able to see the success, right? That they came here, took a chance, many chances, worked hard, right? 2 jobs, I mean, et cetera. Um, and it must be very gratifying them, obviously heartbreaking about your brother, but gratifying to see that you
Yes.
kids have done very, very, not just like surviving, but you're really exploding the American dream. So I'm sure they're incredibly proud of you and the rest of your siblings. So congratulations on that. That being said, what's that?
It makes me very happy to have them know that we've achieved a
Yeah.
lot of successes.
Yeah. Well,
Let them pass on their success to us.
yeah, their risks and their hard work and their journey didn't go to waste, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So the good segue into your, you've done a lot of great things, but let's talk about this storage product you're talking about, because for the average laywoman just listening, might not understand what you're talking about. Where like what it's on the moon, it's in your necklace, like just really make it simple for everybody to understand. What does your product do, and how can it benefit us?
Yeah. So when we look at information that we store, photos, documents, we store them currently now in digital. In my research, I'm finding that digital is very ephemeral, meaning it's not very long lasting. If you were to go back even in 10 years, the technology that stored digital and floppy disks are not available today to actually read. So the information we store today may not be available in 20 years in the same format you store them in, unless you migrate them into something else. So what I created was a technology that will engrave documents, photos in a human readable format, meaning like paper. You can read it, you can actually see it with your human eyes, and reduce it 1,000 times. That's equivalent to taking the entire page of a football field full with paper and then shrinking that down into a small little card.
Hmm.
So that technology, and I not only shrinking it down, but also making it on metal that so that it will last forever. And the newest venture that I have with Gold Money and Royce Abag is to create that format, that printing, that nano printing, to store everything in gold. And so gold will last forever. If you look at King Tut's gold 2,000 years ago, and you look at it now, you brush it off, and it looks exactly the same, very shiny. So we want that memory, that legacy to last in something very precious. Your precious information on precious metal. That's what we want to do.
So, I feel like I remember Saturday Night Live with the caveman skit. I am just a caveman. I don't understand your world. So I'm sitting here as, a podcast host and I was like, okay, you're going to store my memories in gold. Like, I don't get it. Like, tell me, like, how does that work? Right. Like, to me, they're two separate things. Right. So how are you meshing these together? How is gold storage?
Right. So if you were, for some of your audience will know what a microfiche is, and
Yep.
some
I remember microfiche. Sure.
Someone's at your door.
Oops, sorry. So when you have a microfiche, you put it onto a projector, and everything's reduced down maybe 10, 20 times, and then you can recover information back. Well, I go do that 1,000 times more, and putting that down into a nanofiche, which will then record information a much bigger amount of data. And the way you recover that is to put it under a device, a phone, for example. We have a device that you put the phone on, it will scan it, retrieve it, and you get all the information back. So instead of going through a projector and then putting a microfiche in and looking at it, you put your phone on, you press scan, it retrieves your information back, and you have all your information back into the digital format, which you can read. And if you lose it, no big deal, because you have it stored into gold.
Interesting. All right. So is this commercially available now, or is this something that you're still behind the curtain a little bit?
So right now we're filing for intellectual properties, patents, and we want to start commercializing that on a beta basis in May, and do a full launch once we start scaling up and hiring people, getting the equipment to scale, and do that by the end of this year, 2021.
Wow, interesting. That's fascinating. So I'm thinking of, like, I'm using what you're talking about as a kind of a personal example. In the 80s and 90s, right? We everything was on VHS tape, right? And then things started going to DVD and CD, right? And so I went to locally here. I went to this place called Row Photo and Video, and I brought all my VHS tapes, right? Kid stuff, family stuff, et cetera, and we converted it to DVDs and CDs, right? And but to your point, like in 100 years, first of all, are they still going to work, and are there still going to be devices to play them, right? Like, probably not, right?
Probably not. Your USB drive will not be available.
And you can say put it in the cloud, but once again, it's what's going to happen to the cloud, right? That's easily erasable at some point or something, right?
The cloud. Do you know what the cloud is? Do you know where the cloud gets stored?
It's a big server on Hong Kong or something, right?
It's just another person's hard drive, and and for long-term storage, because they deal with so much information. They use what they call an LTO tape, which is a digital linear tape that stores massive amount of information. But as you alluded to, those VHS tapes had to be transferred because they're going to die. So these LTO tapes also, if they sit there in a vault, will die. The digital information will start being lost. The Library of Congress stores things into an LTO tape. So does Amazon, so does Dropbox, so do IBM. Most of the major companies, when they do archival, store them from the cloud. They grab things from the cloud and they put them onto these LTO tapes. These LTO tapes have to be renewed by copying one LTO tape to another LTO tape every single year. If not, they will die. The data will be gone. What's worse is if someone makes a mistake and they copy an LTO tape onto a live LTO tape. So imagine the wedding of your daughter, it's now, a football game, the Bills football game, because you had taped over it, what would you do with the information being lost? Well, that information will be lost in the future if we don't continue to do that. And the energy to maintain that server farm, the environmental impact on that is huge. So you always have to refresh and keep energy going to keep it cool, keep the drives running, spinning. My media, you can store in a warehouse and it'll sit there with zero energy cost. It will not rust, it will not degrade, it will last through a fire because it's made out of metal. It's a very long lasting, it's the longest lasting storage medium of information known to man. That's why we use it for space missions, going to Mars, going to the moon, because it can withstand radiation. And basically any disaster you can design.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, they just say, the metal or gold, whatever it is stored in a warehouse and a bomb goes off. Well, the gold is still there, right? The metal is still there, right?
Still there. If the gold hasn't been shredded to pieces,
Yeah.
which nobody will survive anyway,
Right.
but it will still be there. The fire can go through and rage, but the metal will be there. If you have photos on paper, that will be gone. If you have your USB or hard drives, those will be gone. Nothing will survive. So
Yeah.
your information, basically a portion of your life is gone. Now, I had the experience of storing my information on the cloud when Yahoo was an email service that I subscribed to. I had probably 5 years of email. When Yahoo sold, they changed the servers and they lost all my information,
Oh man.
all of it. They couldn't recover it. And recently I started, posting a lot of information. My wife got me into Facebook. I started posting, videos and photos. Well, my Facebook is gone. I was selling the Constitution. I don't know why they banned me, but I'm banned. I can't get onto Facebook and I can't appeal to someone because I was selling the Constitution. I'm so proud of America. I want to show, the Constitution, the blueprint of the greatest country on earth. And when I did that, I made the mistake, I think, of appealing the marketing to patriots. Now, patriots, as you know, recently with recent events, has been banned by a lot of different media. And so maybe, through AI or whatever, I got caught in between and I can't get back into my Facebook account and I've lost everything. So
For being a
that's
patriot.
another, yeah. So it's really frustrating. I'm afraid there's a centralization of information storage being stored. And if we don't take care of it and decentralize it, we're going to start losing more information.
Yeah. You're getting banned for being a patriot. That's a whole nother podcast, but unbelievable. But I'm glad you're a patriot. I'm glad you appreciate America, and especially somebody like you who wasn't born here, but comes here and really works hard. Your parents and now you and your siblings to make an incredible life. And so I will not ban you, and you will. You are. I'm glad you're a proud patriot. So yeah, that's fantastic.
Love America.
The only Patriots I don't like are in New England and they play football. But other than that, I love Patriots. Yeah. Being a Bills fan, got to get that in there. But no, it's funny. You talked about VHS tapes and then taping over them. I mean, who hasn't done that, right? Like and I haven't told my daughter this yet. She's 16 now, but we by accident taped over her what do they call the sonogram, before she's born there. And I'm like, oh my God, we use that. And so I would have loved to put that in your gold product. So
no, so the gold product is something that for people who are earthbound, if they store information, but we make product that's out of this world, literally.
Yeah.
We're going to be sending 1 million names, and we're going to do this free. We're going to engrave 1 million names and sending that to the moon. And if for a fee of less than $100, you can send a whole page of your story or your loved one's stories engraved into metal. That will go to the moon, and you can do that. That's going to launch. The spacecraft will blast off at the end of this year in 2021. And our hope is we'll send 1 million inhabitants in the Hall of Humanity onto the moon.
Wow.
This year. So we have ambitious goals to store information, store people's lives. I think people's lives are fascinating. Everyone's stories is different. Everyone contributes to history. I'm a big addict of history, learning history, because it makes an impact on how we rule and govern ourselves to make the lives better for everyone. And so and that history is really made not from victors, but from individuals who live. And so when we look back into our history today, we won't learn as much as we can learn from individual stories. And if it can help every individual to store the information, tell the world and history what's important to them, who they are, and what's important to them, what's valuable to them, I'll store that so that when we look back, we'll know what our history is like.
Wow. So the business model in this is just incredible, right? I mean, you certainly could help individuals and families, but from helping businesses store their information. I mean, I might be talking to the next Jeffrey Bezos right now, and I'll say, you heard it here first on the Gonzo Experience podcast. And now it's 5 years later, Bruce won't even take my call. But I mean,
I will take your call, David.
I appreciate it. I remember this is recorded, so you have to now.
That's right.
This is a huge. I mean, what's the, maybe as we close this interview from a entrepreneurial learning perspective, without giving away, your secret plans here. I mean, what's the vision here for scalability?
Well, I imagine a lot of people would want this technology, but even more companies, as you said, we need to have information that cannot be changed. We have information that needs to be changed and fixed. Once we fix it into documents such as deeds for homes, legal documents, history, things like that, we need to keep them archived and keep them safe for a very long time. So this technology will allow a new paradigm for data storage, in addition to the digital, which provides the convenience, but the most important documents that you cannot afford to lose, you want to keep these onto these metal nanofiche totem paths that will last forever. Imagine if Microsoft lost their code for Windows. Oh, how much time would that take for them to redevelop, because they will basically cripple every single Windows computer? What about the Linux codes? A lot of information, your podcast won't work if you don't have an operating system. So we have a lot of very important information we need to store. And I think one day, all of that can be stored onto metal.
Excellent. Do you have a name for this company yet?
It's called Toten Pass. It's TOTEN with the like Nancy, and Pass, PASS, Toten Pass.
Where'd you get that name from? What's totem?
So Totem Pass is it's an ancient name made from passes of people in the ancient days to carry around with information. They were inscribed into metal, but very, very coarse. They were just chiseled in and so forth. And there were passes that contained information about people. Well, I want to change that by making that tens of thousands of times smaller and more efficient, and carry that in gold, because I believe gold is going to be a media that will contain not only the value, because it's a monetary value storage, but also your most precious information. So Totem Pass is very apropos name for something like this.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's gold as a media. Interesting, right? So who would have thought? Well, thanks for helping me understand that. Like I said, I am just a caveman, and now I understand your riddle a little bit more. So appreciate that. Let's get you filling up that Kodak building, man. Why don't you buy the Kodak building, fill it up, and you'll be our next George Eastman.
I would love to reimagine the industry, the blue ocean process, and really reimagine how we can take our existing industry and create something new. I think we can.
Well, Bruce, this has been fantastic. I know that, we talked about before we were recording that based on your life and what you've done and our love of talking, that we could have gone, probably 6 hours on this podcast. I appreciate you really, kind of unpacking this in a very concise way, in an understandable way, in a bite-sized way for us us simple non-tech folks will say to understand what you're doing. And also for anybody, just to appreciate your journey from where you came and where you are today and what you continue to do. And I think my favorite thing about you, obviously you're incredibly intelligent, doing some incredible things in the entrepreneurial world. But my favorite thing about you, Bruce, is just your contagious spirit, right? Like I feel like, we become instant friends, and I'm sure that happens with a lot of people that encounter your positive, optimistic spirit. And so really appreciate you. Glad you're here in my hometown of Rochester. And I want to thank Rebecca LeClaire, our mutual friend, for introducing us. And I just want to say I'm not only glad you made the journey across that big ocean. I'm just glad you were born. So thanks for being born. Let me call your parents and thank them as well, Bruce.
Absolutely. They will be very proud of this interview, and I'm going to show it to them so they can see how far they have taken our family.
Is this your first podcast interview?
It is. It is.
Oh, God.
Thank you.
I'm spiking the ball. I feel like 5 years from now, this interview is going
to be. So congratulations. My first. I always remember the first. Like people always remember the first man on the moon, the first library.
Yep.
My first Gonzo experience.
Yes. What an experience you provided for everybody today. Thank you. If people want to reach out to you and get in touch, learn more, what's the best way to do that?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn personally, and you can also visit my original company. My main company is called StamperTech.com, Stamper Technology. So that's spelled just like a postage stamp. StamperTech.com.
Excellent. Well, Bruce, thanks again. Really appreciate you sharing Heartbeats with us today. And I wish you continued massive success. And I hope to continue to be in touch with you to experience this success with you.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. You've been, I feel like we're instant friends, and I really appreciate the interview.
Absolutely. Right back at you. So thanks again. And I also want to thank the Gonzo family here for sharing your heartbeats with us today. Truly appreciate you. I know that there's a lot of great content out there, a very competitive environment. So I'm really always appreciative of you spending time with me and us today. So thank you for that. Make sure to have a great day, everybody, and stay awesome.